it's Alice, and we've made it to November, and you all know what that means. That means it's time for Nonfiction November. If you don't know what this is, Nonfiction November is like a month-long reading initiative run by the channel ABOOKOLIVE, which I very much recommend. She's amazing. And the whole point of this is just to like read a little bit of nonfiction, whether it be like 1 book or 10 books. And one of the reasons I really like this readathon and I love participating in it is because it's very like chill and very relaxed. There are some reading challenges every year and I ignore them every year, and I'm gonna do it this year as well and just read whatever I want. But I will leave a link to some videos in the description if you want to like find out more about that. Now, I love reading nonfiction. I've really gotten into it for the past like 4 or 5 years, and before that I never used to read any nonfiction because I literally didn't think that I liked it. But just like with fiction, there is so much to choose from, and there's so much interesting stuff and so many interesting books, and I have quite a lot of them on my shelves that I'm looking forward to reading. So I've just picked out a stack that I'm gonna show you. I'm not gonna be able to read all of these during November because I don't read this much in a month, but I've just picked out the books that I'm most interested in, and I'm gonna put this pile on my nightstand, and throughout the month I'm just gonna pick the ones that I'm the most interested in whenever I pick a new book. And I feel like this is a good way of going about it for me. So yeah, we're just gonna go through this pile. The first book that I've picked out is maybe the one that I'll start with, actually, because I really want to get to this one. It is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Doughty, and this is a memoir. Doughty is a mortician, and I've actually read 2 of her other books and I really enjoyed both of them, so I'm really looking forward to this. She has a way of writing and like a sense of humor that I just really get on with. I think this explores her early life and her early career, so I think it's sort of like a coming of age story, but it's also about her like work in this crematory or crematory. I don't know how to pronounce it, but like where they cremate people, which is very interesting. And I really like how this author sort of discusses death and sort of demystifies it, and she is very respectful, but she's also really funny, so like it's very interesting, but we can all also laugh a little bit. I also just have to mention Doughty has a YouTube channel and it's excellent. Like, some of you turned me onto that when I read her first book, and I've been obsessed with that channel ever since. And I watched a really interesting video by her recently, which was about composting as an alternative to burial. Which maybe sounds a little weird, but it was fascinating. And I will leave a link to that video and her channel down below to like the 2 of you who are as weird as me when it comes to this stuff and like as fascinated, and enjoy. It's very interesting. Secondly, I've picked out A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough, and I'm assuming all of you know who Attenborough is, but if you think you don't, you will recognize his voice if you hear it. And this is just all about his life and how he has seen the world decline in his lifetime. And he is like well into his 90s now, I think, which I guess means he was born in like the 1920s. Wow, he's still going. That's very impressive. Anyways, he is known for his natural history documentaries and his passion for nature, and as I'm sure we've all noticed, the current world is on fire, and this is just about how he has seen all of that come about and his visions for the future. I'm sure when I read this I will like hear his voice in my head when I'm reading, just like I do whenever I like read any of Stephen Fry's books. Actually, speaking of hearing things, I thought this month I might try some of the books that I'm showing you on audiobook, because I keep wanting to get into audiobooks and I just can't. Like, the fiction ones that I've tried just don't work for me, and a lot of you recommended that I try some nonfiction instead, so I might try to do that this month. I am determined to find like some audiobooks that work for me, so maybe this will be the month where I find some. Then we have got another climate change book that I'm pretty sure was on my Nonfiction November TBR for last year, but it's We Are the Weather by Jonathan Safran Foer, and this is just a book about the climate crisis. And I think I read something about how it like takes on the climate crisis in a deeply personal and urgent new way, which sounds very interesting. And I think the book focuses quite a lot on what we eat and what we as a collective need to do to like help this situation out, and what individuals need to do, and all of the things that we know we should do but we don't. I'm hoping this will be thought-provoking and interesting, but maybe not as depressing as like The Uninhabitable Earth, which I read not too long ago, and yeah, I still lay awake thinking about that book and what I read in it, and it was a nightmare. Like, it was interesting, but a nightmare. So I'm hoping this will be not necessarily lighter, but not as like horrifying. Next, we have got a bit of a historical one, and it is Agent Zigzag by Ben McIntyre. And I've read several books by this author now, and I really enjoy them, so I'm hoping this will be as good as the ones that I've read. The story in here is about this British double agent during the Second World War who was a little shady, shall we say, which honestly, aren't we all? Apparently this guy was like parachuted into Britain in, I think, 1941, and he was a German spy, and he ended up going to MI5 and like recruiting himself as a double agent, and he spent the rest of the war as a double agent, and he got into all kinds of trouble and seduced all of these women along the way. And the other books that I've read by this author have also been about spies, and they were very exciting, so I'm sure this will be as well. Speaking of the Second World War, I've actually got a book that I would like to reread this month, and it is Mouse by Art Spiegelman. And this is a graphic novel. It's probably my favorite graphic novel actually, but I haven't read it for like 5 or 6 years, so I thought it was due a reread. The story in here is about a father and his son, and the father sort of tells the son about his experiences during the war, and we sort of get to see how that has affected his current life. This is not only an interesting story of family and war, I also really like the art style in here and like the concept of it, and how the Jews are drawn as mice and the Nazis are cats. Like, the whole concept of it is very interesting, and it's a very layered story, and I feel like it discusses all of the themes beautifully, so I'm really looking forward to revisiting this. Then we've got another book that I'm pretty sure I meant to read last year, and it is Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. And everyone tells me that this book is amazing, and I'm sure it is, but it's also kind of chunky, and I'm not gonna lie, I find this book a little bit intimidating. This is history true crime though, which I'm very interested in, and it focuses on the conflict in Northern Ireland in the 70s. And I feel like I really don't know a whole lot about that, so I think this will be very educational. And I think that sort of the case that we focus on is the abduction of this mother of 10 in, I think, 1972. And this was like one of the most notorious abductions during the Troubles. And I don't know anything about it. Like, I don't know if they figured it out or like anything about the like political climate in that time. So I'm sure this will be very interesting. I'm very intrigued to find out like what happened. Moving on to something totally different though, I have got some art books that I would like to try and read this month, and honestly all of these are kind of like self-explanatory, so I'm just gonna go through them quickly. I've got these 3, and the first one is 100 Great Paintings, which, you guessed it, is about 100 great paintings, and we get to read a little bit about each of them. I've also got these 2 books, which each focus on a different artist. So we have one about Hokusai and one about Monet, both of which are artists that I really like, but I don't know a whole lot about like their careers or their lives or their histories. So I think it'll be interesting to read these and learn a little bit more, and they're quite quick reads as well, which is fun. Lastly, we have got 2 books in Norwegian. They both sort of deal with the Second World War, and I'm really interested in learning more about Norway during the Second World War because I feel like I don't know enough. So we've got Frida by Nina F. Grünfeld, and this is all about the author's grandmother, and I think this author just dives into her life and finds out all of this stuff that no one ever knew about her. The grandmother was born in Austria in 1908, I think, and she led a very interesting life, I think, that took her loads of different places, but it eventually led her to Norway, and she became one of the country's most famous psychiatrists. And I'm pretty sure there's a bit in here about the Second World War, like something huge happened to the grandmother during the Second World War that really changed her life. I don't know what, but I'm very interested to find out. The last book I got is Norske kvinner i krig by Mari Jonassen, and this translates to Norwegian Women in War. So it's basically just all about what the Norwegian women were up to during the war years and how they like participated in the resistance and all of the work that they did. And I think this will be very interesting because I remember when I learned about the Second World War in school, there was a lot of focus on the men and what they did and what they were up to, and not so much about the women. So I feel like this will fill in a gap in my historic knowledge, and I think it'll be fascinating. Okay everyone, those were all the books that I had to show you, and I would love to know if any of you are also participating in Nonfiction November and what books are on your TBR, or you could just tell me about a nonfiction book that you're really looking forward to reading. As usual, links to my Patreon and other social media will be in the description if you're interested, and I will see you soon. Bye!